Hello viewer, we're back with another Starfield video. We're going to do another ship tour today. Um, so let's talk to the technician. We're in Aquila City.
Anything I can help you with? Okay, no problem.
Today we're looking at the Razorleaf. Now a lot of people get the Razorleaf in the game and I did as well. By the time I got it I already had a much better combat ship and more practical ship. That would be the Ingot if you've seen any of my other videos. I didn't really like the look of the Razorleaf though. I found it too spindly, the engine sticking out on her stock, stuff like that. So I rebuilt it into this thing. And I think it's a little bit better looking ship. It's definitely more capable right now than it was before. I've upgraded it to a B-class reactor, B-class ships, B-class shields, B-class weapons, and so it hits pretty hard. It's still relatively quick. You should be able to get all the parts you need for this thing in Aquila City. Now I'll pull a couple of pieces off to show you sort of what the internals look like on it, and then we'll go out and we'll check it out. Now first thing you might notice is that I've gone for the side docker as opposed to the rear docker, and I couldn't really figure out any way to leave the rear docker in and to drop the height of it. Like I didn't really like how it had a third deck on here where the grav drive and the reactor were, and also this piece here was kind of stuck up on the top here, and I noticed that it was a really nice fit in order to sort of fill the gap with the top of the cockpit. So I decided it would look a little bit better like that, and we'll just show you what I've sort of done here. So I'll pull this thing off, and this, and finally these two pieces. Now the Razorleaf has a pair of 2x1 modules, and I believe by default the captain's cabin is on the bottom and the armory is on the top. I swapped those two, and I've also got them staggered so that I've got this one right up behind the cockpit. The front landing gear is still in the same spot, and then behind that I put the grav drive, and I put the captain's cabin offset a little bit up on the top here, so that spans between the armory and over top of the grav drive. Then I put the reactor over on the side opposite where the landing bay was. I could have glitched it inside of the grav drive, but I'm not really a big fan of the glitch building, so I tend to avoid that in almost all circumstances. I didn't really like the big spindly engine, so I put these things on. These are A-class. However, if you want the mid-engine to match up with it, you're going to end up with a B-class engine. Not a problem if you've already upgraded the reactor and stuff like that. But if you don't have your piloting skill up to the point where you can use B-class components, or you can't afford it, what you could go with is one of the many other engines that you can fit into this spot here. Initially, what I ended up going with was, I think it was the White Dwarf 3015 or the 3020. And they're not a great fit for it. Like they don't really match up all that well, but they'll work, and it'll allow you to keep the entire ship as A-class if that's what you want. Underneath the engines, I found that it looked a little bit barren, so I put a couple of cargo holds. These are the shielded variety that I picked up at the quay. If you don't have access to the quay, you haven't started the Crimson Fleet mission yet, you could always go with non-shielded cargo holds. These ones do require Starship design, and the equivalent version of them that you can get here would be cargo. You could go with these, which require Starship Design Rank 1. But there is... maybe it's not available here. I was going to say something equivalent. Or just pick one of the other ones until you can find these at the at an appropriate vendor. I may have found these ones at New Atlantis, or something that looks like this at New Atlantis. I've used a very similar cargo hold on one of my other ships, and I believe I did most of the building there. Then, of course, I've got the Aculander, Stroud Ackland. Kind of matches in with the shape of the engines, the shape of the docker, stuff like, or shape of the landing bay. And it doesn't quite match up right with these front landing gear, but in order to put any landing gear underneath here, I think I'd probably have to go up a little bit higher. I think this is probably too low to put a module in here, and I didn't really want to raise the ship up. I like the low profile. Now, the one thing that I did have to glitch is these two Stroud Eklund fairings that it's got mounted on it. And in order to put those things on, you have to remove the gun, put it in, and it won't snap into place. So if you're not familiar with glitch building, you basically just keep flipping it using the Y button on the controller until you get to the back to the correct position, and it's actually now attached, even though it was red. And then you can put your gun back on. So that was kind of the only thing that I had to do. In addition to the shielded cargo hold, I've also got the scan jammer, which is mounted to an equipment plate. I believe I bought the equipment plate here. And I've got four Class B electron beam, essentially. So it'll do equal damage to shield and hull. And initially I had 3 of them, and then I decided I wasn't doing anything with the node on the side of the reactor, so I put a weapon mount, and then I put a 4th one onto it, which allows me to completely use up my reactor power. That uses all 12 of those slots in the weapon power, and I do have enough reactor juice to run everything. And then I also put an EM weapon on there for disabling ship engines for boarding. We got a decent missile launcher on here. I thought I had a B class, but perhaps I ended up going with the A, and I'm thinking of another ship where I put a B class on. B class shield, but once again you could settle for the A if that's what you can manage. So really the only thing that you're going to lose out on by sticking A class would be this one particular engine, which you can't get in an A class variant. Okay, so that shows you the basic layout of it. Docker is on the bottom, pretty much in line with the landing bay, and then we got the reactor here. We got the grav drive immediately behind the bay. Fuel tanks back here. You could use a larger fuel tank where it's got the little quad 4 sphere tank, but I decided I didn't really need that, and I kind of like the look of what it's done with the back end here, being a little bit recessed, and that was one of the main reasons. Like initially when I built this thing, I didn't have these spacers in, and the engine actually sat forward a little bit more. And I found that it was without these cargo bays in here, it was just too flat on the back end, and of course without the 3rd engine, you can get by with just the 2 engines. But I found that it looked a little maybe too short and stubby, and I wasn't really too impressed with it. So what I decided to do is just put the engines back a little further, put these cowlings in to space it out, and then go with the 3rd engine to sort of fill it out. And it gives it a nice back profile. It's still nice and low, which I think looks a lot better than the initial one. So let's go out and we'll do a walk around on the landing pad, and then I'll show you what the interior looks like, which is almost exactly the same as the stock version.
Watch it. Ship's coming and going.
So as you can see, it sits nice and low. The only real spot where it doesn't blend in is the front of the landing bay. On the other side with the reactor, because it's kind of curved, it sort of makes a nicer transition between the front landing gear and the landing gear behind it. The rear cargo bay pretty much fits the appearance pretty good. So you've got the same armory as it came with. There's a lot of parts that I haven't bothered to swap out yet, and the same captain's cabin that it came with. And the reason that I wanted the captain's cabin up here is because if you put it on the lower deck, the side entry is going to lose the bathroom. And although it's not actually usable in the game, it's one of them things where I look at it and I go, well, you know, like you should have proper facilities. For instance, it's a little weird that there's no proper food preparation in here. But that's just sort of the limitation you get with a captain's cabin as opposed to an all-in-one. Storage for guns.
Glorious day.
Up
don't
into
you
the
think?
cockpit.
Hey there. Glad to see you again.
And with the engines that I've got on, the handling is actually pretty good. It shows 100% on there. Possibly due to my skills, I've got decent speed on it as well.
8 point reached. Orbit stable.
Now, while it's theoretically limited to 150 meters a second for A-class engines and 140 for B-class, my actual top speed is 177. Turn rate is pretty quick, even at maximum speed. And it boosts to about 650. The current reactor that I've got in there gives me, I think it was 31 power, and I'm gaining a little bit on that because one of the crew gives me an extra one, and I believe I get an extra 2 for the aneutronic fusion skill. So I've got plenty of power to fully power up the weapons. Engines are fully powered, missiles are fully powered. The only thing that I don't have any power left for is the grav drive. So hits pretty hard, shields are pretty good, and I very much prefer my version of the Razorleaf to the stock one. There we are in flight. Anyways, I just thought it was a little nicer profile. So this is one possible suggestion on what you might want to do with yours if you find that you're not really flying it much. I found that the stock ship, I didn't use it much because by the time I got it, I had a better combat ship, or actually a few better combat ships, and it didn't have a lot of cargo space. I tend to pack rat a lot. Right now I am pretty well set up for cargo. I think it's 1100 or something like that, although my skills may be coming into that as well. I think it was 320 for each of the cargo bays that I've got on there for shielded, and the balance of it has got to be skills and what's in the cockpit. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Hopefully it's given you a few ideas for your own builds, and come back for the next one if you're interested.